What's going down, guys? In this tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to connect to a database using PHP and MySQL. So without further ado, let's get straight to it. First of all, it's important to note that you won't be able to just view PHP files on your local machine, unlike with HTML files, for example. In order to view them in your browser, you'll need to have some form of server. And there are two main options for this. You could either use a web host to host your PHP files and make them visible on the World Wide Web, or you could simply install software such as XAMPP, which can be downloaded for free and acts as a local host. I use XAMPP and I would recommend that you use it as well. So let's get started with the tutorial then. As you can see, I've already created an index.php file and I've saved this on my flash drive, and I've saved it on my flash drive in the XAMPP Lite folder and then in the htdocs. So in order to view this web page, we need to go to start the application, the XAMPP Lite application. You can minimize that because it's successfully started. Then we need to go to htdocs and connecting to a database, and you will see that's where my index.php file has been saved. Okay. So now we can type in here localhost :8666 / connecting, and just let me check something actually. Just let me check the name, the file path. Right, yeah. So I've used spaces in between, which is a bit silly. So I'll need to put %20 wherever a space is required in the file path. So connecting to a database / index.php, and you'll see that the PHP file is now displayed in the browser because we are connected to a server. Okay, so now I'm going to create a new database. So I'm going to go to localhost :8666 / phpMyAdmin. phpMyAdmin, for those of you who don't know, comes free with XAMPP, which is handy. So to create a new database, we're going to type in this field where it says create new database. We're going to call it my_database and then click create. And then we're going to create a new table on the database, and we're going to give the table the name of data, and we're going to add two fields to this table. Click go. And okay, so the first field is going to be called ID. It's always good to have an ID on your database tables. And the second field is going to be called name. Okay. So the type for ID needs to be changed to integer, and it needs to be given a length value of 11. For the name, the type can stay as varchar, and the length value will change to 40. And then for the ID, we need to make sure that it's auto-incremented and a primary key. Okay, so it's the primary key, and it auto-increments a new value when a new record is added to the database table. So now we can go to insert, and we'll add some dummy records. So I'm going to add in Joe as the first record, and the second record I'm going to add Jane. I don't need to put anything in the ID fields, because when we click save and we go to browse, you will see that ID is auto-incremented. It automatically adds in a new ID value for each new record. So we've got ID1 as Joe, ID2 as Jane. Those are the two records now that we have in our database table. So go back to your text editor then. As you can see, I've already typed up the bare bones of a HTML document. So we're going to go into the body tags, and we're going to create the PHP tags. Okay, so in here, we're now going to make a connection. So $con equals MySQL connect, and in here, we need 3 sets of quotes, each separated by a comma. The first one is going to be, for me, it's going to be localhost. Then the second one for me is going to be root, and then the last one would be where a password to the database goes. but I don't have a password set on mine, so I'm just going to leave that blank. If you don't have a password, you don't have to put a value in there. Then we're going to we're going to select the database that we want. So $db equals MySQL select DB, and in here, in quotes, we'll just reference that. We need to put in my_database, or whatever you named your database, because it might not be the same as mine. My_database, and that's it. That is literally all we need to do to actually make a connection to the database that we've just created. That's it. But in order to ensure that we've made a connection, and so that you can see for yourselves, if you're unsure, we can create a quick if statement. If $con, we want to echo out onto the page some text saying successfully connected to the database. Okay? So what that's basically saying is, if a connection has been made to localhost, root, and the password is correct, etc., then it will echo out successfully connected to the database on the page. Then we want to say else. We want the script to die, and we want the text to be, we want some text to be displayed on the page saying error, so that you know that there's an error that's been made. So that could be with the password to the connection, or it could be any of the other two values that aren't correct, or if you've made a typo or something like that, it will say error. So file, save, and now we can refresh in the browser and index.php, and you'll see it now states successfully connected to the database on the web page. So that shows that we have now successfully connected and made a connection. So I'm just going to show you what happens now if something goes wrong. So I'm just going to change localhost to, say, hello. Okay, file, save. So obviously, these details, these values are wrong. So when we now refresh in the browser, you will see it now comes up with an error message, and it also states error. It also displays the text error underneath, which is what we told it to say. So you can see it says unknown MySQL server host hello. It's unknown. So that's just an example of what could happen if anything's wrong. So change that back to localhost. And now we're going to add a new if statement, and we're going to say if $db. So if the database can be found and can be selected, we want it to echo successfully found the database. So if my_database can successfully be found and connected to, then we want it to display on the page successfully found the database. Else, we want the script to die, and we want text to be displayed, like an error message to be displayed saying error, database not found, to inform you that the database cannot be found. So you may have spelt it wrong, typed it in wrong, whatever. But when we file save, refresh in the browser, you'll see it now says successfully connected to the database, and then it also says successfully found the database. So that just shows that the database can be found. So just as an example of the error message that would be shown if you make a typo or you type the name of the database in wrong. So say we type in Tutti Frutti as the database name, file, save, and refresh, and you'll see that it says error, database not found. Okay, because we haven't created a database in PHP MyAdmin called Tutti Frutti, so that database cannot be found and it cannot be connected to. Whereas my_database can, because we've just created that and that exists. So file, save, refresh, and there we go. So you don't need to display a message saying that you've successfully connected to the database. You don't need to display those messages. That's just to show you that it works and it connects. So now we are going to type some HTML, and we're just going to add a couple of line breaks, and then we're going to open another set of PHP tags, because what we're going to do now is we're just going to basically display the information within our database on the web page. So to do that, we need to first of all create a new variable called $query, which is equal to MySQL query. And within here, we need to type in a set of quotes, and within here we're going to type select everything from data. And so basically, data, that's where your database table name goes. So our database table within the database is called data. So select everything from data. The everything part of that query, that SQL query, is an asterisk or a star. So select star from data. Then we need to create a while loop. So while $row equals MySQL fetch array $query. So the MySQL fetch array needs to be the same variable as the MySQL query variable that we've just created above. And then in here we can put, within the while loop, we can put $id, which is a new variable called $id, equals $row id. $name, a new variable called $name, equals $row name. So what that's doing is that's getting the ID field from the database table data and storing it in a variable called ID, and it's doing the same with name. So then within the while loop we can echo out $id, space, dot, space, and then a bit of HTML, which just basically adds in a colon and a space, and then space, dot, space, $name, space, dot, space, and then we'll add in some HTML, which is just a line break, so that it puts each record on a new line, basically when it's displayed, and not on the same line, because that can be a bit confusing. So file, save, go back to the browser, press refresh, and there we go. We've displayed all the records within our database table on the web page. As you can see, Joe and Jane and their IDs have been now displayed on our web page. So now we're going to add in two new records. We're going to add in Harold and Frank, just as an example. Go, and we can now browse, and you can see now that two more records have been added to our database, Harold and Frank. So now when we refresh index.php, as you can see, Harold and Frank are also now displayed on the page. So there you go. So we've now retrieved all the data from within our database table that we've just created after making the connection and establishing the connection, and we've displayed all four records. And that's how it's done. And that's how you display records on a web page as well. So that's just about it then for this tutorial, guys. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give it a like if you did enjoy it. And don't forget to subscribe to be notified when I upload new videos in the future. But for now, bye guys.